Hello and welcome to Triggernometry. I'm Francis Foster.
I'm Konstantin Kisin.
And this is a show for you if you want honest conversations with fascinating people.
Our brilliant guest today is an Australian comedian who's been warning about some of the stuff we've been talking for a long time, since about 10 years ago. Steve Hughes, welcome to Triggernometry.
Hello.
It's good to have you, man.
It's good to be here.
It is.
Hour and a half in a taxi.
And so you came here, and when I was talking to you about being on the show, because, you know, massive fan of your comedy, and when we were talking about political correctness, you used the words to me, I fucking told you about this shit 11 years ago. No one was listening. You are now.
That's his best Australian accent, by the way.
Well, I obviously wasn't the first to bring this up. Obviously, Bill Maher's had a show called, what, Politically Incorrect or something for 20-odd years, you know. There was even an album brought out in the 80s, which was a joke album, a joke band, Anthrax, which is a legitimate band still going, but they mucked around. They had an album called Speak English or Die, just a sort of punk crossover joke. So all the songs were anti-PC and offensive.
Yeah.
You know, right? So obviously that PC stuff was obviously in a place like New York, that's where they're from. It'd been around. That was like mid-80s. And they had this kind of anti-PC. So obviously, you know, I'm not the first guy to go, hey, PC people are a bit nuts. But back in, 2008 or something, when they really did started bringing in that crossover of we can connect hate crime to offence, that's when I went, hang on. Because offence is not abuse or even insult, is it? It's offence. Because, you know, which is, you don't want to bring law into offence, because a vegetarian could be offended at a barbecue.
Yeah, but that seems to be the place that we're at.
It is the place that we're at. Where
Well, you were talking about
better agree with the narrative.
Yeah.
On every single political niche, cultural niche, social sort of a racial niche, sexual niche. You better agree with all of it, or you're some kind of sexist, transphobic, Islamophobic, racist, heteronormative, cisgendered, microaggression lunatic.
Yeah.
Well, I want to bring it back to the video of you on Michael McIntyre's Roadshow, which we've just played at the beginning of this episode. And this was recorded in 2009, right? And you're talking about this very thing. You're talking about the culture of offense, people taking offense, and it's a subjective thing. You're talking about all of that. That's 11 years ago, at a time when we weren't really having this conversation in the same way. Like you said to Francis, I was warning you guys. And back then, the way I remember it, like people talking about political correctness, it was very much the sort of Daily Mail, PC's gone mad, you can't say anything these days. But 11 years on now, I think we're in a very different place, aren't we?
Well, I think you two know we're in a very different place.
Yeah.
Well, we are. It seems. As I said when I talked to you the other day, I said I'll come on this. You know, there'll be lots of people watching this that don't know who I am, and I've watched some of the shows. You know, some with Douglas and the other fella who was on, who did the stuff about Christianity and history. And
Tom Holland.
Interesting, with the hedgehogs.
Yeah,
that's the one.
So they're educated. I can tell they're educated, well-spoken men, whereas I'm not. So I'm not here to tell anyone that I'm, you know, an expert or all I'll talk about is the stuff that I've read and studied, I guess, through 20 years, and form my, I don't like the word belief system, but form my sort of view of how certain things in the world are connected and deep in conspiracy. And I don't mind being called a conspiracy theorist, because it's like being called a racist now, doesn't it? It's like the boy who cried wolf. Yeah. Oh, you're a racist, am I? Oh, whatever. Doesn't mean anything to me anymore. I don't care. You know, I'm not going to listen to these feminists or PC people or trans or what. Who are you? I'm a 53-year-old man. I don't need some 20-year-old with pink hair to tell me that I'm a racist. I'm like, what are you talking about?
But I know.
Like, who are you? You don't know my life. You don't know you don't know anything about me. You're just, when I see people now, when I grew up around punks and metalheads, here's why I can't stand these young people. When I used to see girls when I grew up with green hair and Doc Martens, they were cool girls. Now I see anyone like that, I'm like, get them the fuck away from me. Because here's the great irony to me. It's like, even though now I can see a lot of my old punk mates were still getting inundated with that lefty ideology. We use these terms without getting too dualistic in politics, right? to some of my old mates, I realised, and also just the vibe that was around when we were in underground punk and that, a lot of this stuff was, already in our heads. In that underground punk world, it was like, no one cares whether you're black or Chinese, you come to the punk gig, no one cares if you're gay. That was the whole thing about it. It was that opening up of away from that mainstream sort of idea of just, you get married to a girl and it was all that sort of, everyone, you want to, I've been to, here's the other thing, I've known tranny guys for 20 odd years at hippie festivals that I met in the 90s. And that's what I love now. And you think you're having a rough time now. This guy was one in the 70s in Australia. Now he's in a teepee on pills. So, he still had some stuff to get to.
Yeah.
But, so it seemed to me that, and punks and that the whole thing was that we don't mind not being accepted by the mainstream. We use these words, right? So we'll make our extreme death metal band. We don't care if no one likes it. Well, other metalheads will like it. We've got no support. We won't get on a TV show. We won't do this, but we're going to do it anyway, right? We'll do it anyway. But now it seems to me you've got all these young people who've been inundated with this PC narrative that now they tell you that the system is what? Well, they want it destroyed, don't they? They say defund the police. They say they believe that the system is what? Inherently racist. So I can't be a white guy that's not racist. Why? Because I've been brought up in that system that's systematically racist. Is that the word they use?
Yeah.
Systemic
racism.
So therefore they use this to quantify their arguments that, well, you have to be some kind of racist. Why? Because you've been brought up in this hierarchical, white, colonialist, dominating, especially with Britain, I guess, empirical tentacle. And there's a truth to tentacles that came out of colonialism and but it doesn't mean that what these people think is somehow now I've got to bow down and go, oh yeah, white people have been the evilest people in the world and everyone else. I'm like, forget about it, right? Because these young kids are telling you that this system now is this. It's intrinsically systemic racist, all this, but they're begging to be accepted by it. Whereas when I grew up, these punks and that go, well, we don't want to be accepted by it. We'll stand over here. We're not going to work in the bank. Why? Well, I got a mohawk. This is why I got a mohawk. Why? So I stand out against the system and it won't accept me. But now you've got these young people going, well, why won't the system accept me? Even though I think the system is systemically racist, sexist, violent, colonialist, capitalist, which I want to see destroyed, but at the same time, I want this very system I'd like to see destroyed accept me.
It's a great point.
What?
It's a great
I
point.
know my friend sent to mine the other day, he sent me this thing the other day going, so he goes, this is your joke on the news. And there was some Aussie punk guy going, with his, and like punk was over in about 78 in London, but still they exist, the fashion sort on. So there's some guy in a discharge jacket with studs and liquid paper and a mohawk. And the articles were, I go for jobs and the employers don't want to hire me because the way I look. Well, of course. That's why you dress like that. Right. But now they use it as this victim. See how I don't get anything?
Yeah.
See if I just want to express myself, the system won't accept me. What